Lord Grocott.
My Lords, I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on the order paper.
My Lords, the Government has received and continues to receive many representations on all aspects of House of Lords reform.
Well, my Lords, I didn't really expect an answer to the question, so I'm not disappointed. Has the Government still not learnt the lesson of the AV referendum, which is that unlike the Deputy Prime Minister, the British public don't think that our Constitution is broken, and they think that government should spend their time on other, more important matters. And can I suggest this to him, that before the government embarks on any future constitutional experiments, it applies two tests. Number one, do the public want it? And number two, is there a political consensus to deliver it?
My Lords, it is true that the Government have been overwhelmed with responses from the public after the publication of the White Paper. But, my Lords, at least one interpretation of that is, of course, that the public are reasonably satisfied with the proposals that the Government have put forward. Of course, my Lords, the public are understandably concerned with a whole range of important things such as jobs, education and health, but because this subject does not have an immediate resonance, that is the reform of the House of Lords, that does not mean that it is important. My Lords, at the last election, I've reminded the House of this before. At the last election, all three main parties had in their manifestos a pledge to reform the House, and people were very happy to vote for it. And as for political consensus, we will see to the work of the Joint Committee when it reports next year.
My Lords,
I think seniority gives it to Lord Tyler.
My Lords, has my noble friend, amongst the representations he's been examining, seen the report published on Monday entitled The End of the Peer Show, in which Mr. Hilary Benn has committed the Labour Party to a continuing campaign based on their manifesto commitment for a wholly elected House of Lords? And is my noble friend aware of any successful parliamentary candidate who arrived in the other place committed to voting against his party's manifesto?
No, my Lords, I'm not. And while I haven't read Mr. Benn's no doubt splendid article, perhaps given that the recess starts later on today, it should be required reading for all noble Lords.
my Lords, why is the Leader of the House so reticent but telling us how many representations actually had? He said many. Is that 10, 20, 100, 1,500, 1,000? And will he take this opportunity to correct his Freudian slip when he said House of Lords reform was not important?
Well, my Lords, that was well spotted by the noble Lord. Of course, it is extremely important and something that this Government is very committed to dealing with. My Lords, since the general election, we've received over 180 letters from members of the public. And since the publication of the White Paper, we've received over 30 pieces of correspondence. But, my Lords, the key part of this is that the vast majority of these letters call for a change in the way this House is run.
My Lords, has my noble friend, as he had such an overwhelming response, had the chance to memorise all these letters? Could he tell the House how many people have written to him or made representations on National Health Service, on the Education Bill, on the Localism Bill? And does not this indicate that as far as the general public is concerned, they're fairly well satisfied with what they have, and they're very much more worried about many other things? And could not we take the recess to try and readjust the priorities of Her Majesty's government?
My Lords, we've just set up a sort of first-class joint committee of both houses, which is going to look at the draft bill. Most of the letters we've received come up with their own new, improved schemes for the future of the House of Lords, or are interested in the continuation of the bishops remaining in the House of Lords and representation of other faiths.
My Lords, public engagement with this bill might be enhanced by describing its consequences in terms of the interaction of our citizens with this Parliament. So how would the noble Lord, the leader, advise a constituent in 2016 who had 2 elected representatives to this Parliament, an MP from the opposition party and a senator from the governing party who wished to raise an urgent issue with the Home Office? Should they speak to MP or senator?
Well, my Lords, I hope that that's exactly one of the questions the noble Lord Richard will tackle in his joint committee. We don't anticipate senators, if that is what they are called, taking over the role of members of Parliament. Of course, it will be entirely free for members of the public to write to both members of Parliament and their senators.
My Lords, I wonder if I could just say one thing. I was fascinated by the figures that the noble Lord Leader of the House produced. The House may like to know that a call for evidence has gone out by the Joint Commission. I can only say I sincerely hope we'll do much better than the government.
My Lords, I fully expect the noble Lord will.